This destabilization will profoundly impact every country on Earth.
We must view young people not just as leaders of tomorrow, but rather as leaders of today.
This could be the most
important minute of your day.
We have been through difficult times
and face big problems ahead.
You can play your part.
Right now.
Right now.
Пожалуйста. Please close your eyes.
Imagine the better future we could have.
For the people you love.
how do we lift each other up
And make it fair.
How do we protect nature?
and save our shared home.
Picture that future you want.
Now open your eyes.
It's time to talk about the future we want.
I think this is the most important issue that we need to be talking about.
We are not drowning! We are not drowning!
Climate change is here now, and it is killing people right now. The people who are looking at it right in the face.
The next 8 to 10 years is going to determine the quality of life for the next 100 to 200 years.
We all watched with amazement when exactly 1 year ago, young people from all over the world took to the streets to express their feeling that we're not doing enough about climate change.
Today we take a stand for Mother Nature.
That we're not treating it like the emergency it is. It's a year later now. Have we done enough? No, we have not. And climate change is only part of this story. Our rainforests are disappearing at an extraordinary rate. 1 football field of rainforest is destroyed every 6 seconds. 1 million plant and animal species are on the brink of extinction. By 2050, there will be more plastic in the oceans than fish. And so climate change and our treatment of the natural world are colliding and exacerbating each other to create a perfect storm. This cannot go on. You know it, I know it, and we know what we need to do.
Dear friends, it is my privilege to welcome you to the Youth-Led Solutions Summit on behalf of the World YMCA. This is your summit, and this is your space. I'm so happy that we are able to listen to you and to create this space to unleash your creativity. This summit mark a real shift in how we empower young people. It is the result of our learning to listen to your voice and to support your initiatives to becoming solution provider and not just simple consumer of whatever we provide you. I wish to thank all those who have worked tirelessly behind the scene to launch this great event and ensure that is a part of a bigger process to inspire, incubate, and accelerate your ideas to develop solutions. Solutions to the challenge with which you and your community are confronted. We have all supported this because we believe that young people lead us out of crisis. They always have and they always will. To all the young people who hear this, I simply say that for all your struggle at the moment, and I know there are so many of these in this time of COVID, this is about your future and the way you can impact the world's future. Our vision as World YMCA is to take good local youth solutions and bring them to scale. It is a vision which has to be based on just, fair, and resilient community and the well-being of all people. It has involved you coming together as part of a solution team to present the kernel of ideas. Ideas which are going to be critically examined and strengthening, and then to get them off the ground, given seed funding. I'm so excited. Collectively, we have assembled some 80 solution teams comprising over 600 participants from nearly 50 countries. That's great. We have started by addressing climate change because it's clearly the existential issue of our time. We still have time to act on it, But part of the YMCA commitment to the idea of young people as leaders is to go even further than climate change and to address other critical issues aligned with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. In 2021, we hope to launch Youth-Led Solution Summits on mental health and jobs. So, thank you again. Especially thanks to the YMCA of USA and to the San Francisco YMCA for believing in this and for working with the World YMCA to make it happen. Thank you too to a number of sponsors and partners, commercial and individual, who have so generously got behind us. Enough of me now and my generation, and over to you. Here is our presenter, a remarkable 20-year-old leader and climate campaigner from Canada. She is a young world ambassador and winner of the International Children's Peace Prize. She has founded her own social innovation enterprise, the Green Hope Foundation. But more importantly, she is our presenter today. Thank you, Kekash and Basu, and over to you. Young people, over to you. Our Mother Earth needs you. Thank you.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to YMCA's first ever Youth-led Solution Summit. At the onset, I would like to inform you that if you prefer to tune in to the summit in French or Spanish, please go to app.interactio.io or download the Interactio app from your smartphone store, type in the code YMCA, choose your language, and press play. I'm Kehkasha Basu, your host, presenter, and MC, and I am so delighted to be able to take you through our packed show of inspiring young leaders, the thinkers and doers of today, to begin an international dialogue on creating youth-led solutions to address the climate crisis. Climate action for me is about obtaining climate justice. We can mitigate climate change only when we link it to human rights and development to achieve a human and planet-centered approach, safeguarding the rights of the most vulnerable people and sharing the burdens and benefits of climate change and its impacts equitably and fairly. So through this new groundbreaking youth-led solutions initiative, the largest youth organization on the planet is deepening its commitment to addressing global issues such as climate change. It will put resources directly into the hands of young leaders. And over the last week, teams of young people around the world have been working behind the scenes to identify the problems and then begin finding solutions to mitigate them. And this is what it's all about.
Our world faces many problems, and young people have many of the answers. But not alone. YMCA deeply believes in supporting the well-being of all people and creating an equitable, sustainable planet and communities for everyone on Earth. We do this by amplifying youth solutions that are addressing some of the world's biggest issues. For decades, YMCA has been deeply embedded in communities in every corner of the world. Now we need to support and equip young leaders to be multipliers of change. We are creating an international network and conversation to create solutions. We do this with the Youth-Led Solutions Initiative. Young leaders come together to form solution teams, using design-based thinking to address the problems of the planet. Using the Sustainable Development Goals as a framework, the issues we tackle will change with each summit. Entering teams are then connected to resources, like workshops and leadership coaches. Their ideas questioned and tested by experts to develop solutions that innovate and are practical for the people they aim to help. With partners, NGOs, academia and businesses, teams are able to bid for seed funding to get their ideas off the ground. While they are implementing local solutions, collectively, their impact is global. Finally, change happens. The answers are here.
As you embark upon this journey with us today, be sure to take a picture of you watching at home and share your favorite moments, quotes, and thoughts by posting now on Twitter or Instagram with the hashtag YMCA Youth Solutions, and we'll read out some of your tweets throughout the summit live. So, this is the first in a series of summits as part of the initiative over the next 18 months, with each one focusing on a critical global issue that is aligned with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals that requires the urgent collaboration of all stakeholders to not just address, but proactively solve. The SDGs, 17 goals and 169 targets for the world to achieve by 2030 provide the blueprint for realizing a sustainable and equitable world that leaves no one behind and ensures a life of dignity for all. adoption of the SDGs was truly historic. I should know because I was present at the ceremony. However, it was only the beginning. We still have a long way to go in achieving our dream of a sustainable world. And it's clear that civil society is not doing enough. World leaders and governments are not moving fast enough. Thus, there is an urgent need for action at all levels. Now, for centuries, nature was protected by a set of people who have a deep connection to the planet, but so often their voices have gone unheard or been ignored. The indigenous communities of this world have an insight like no other into this relationship between people and planet. Recognizing this connection, a group of indigenous young leaders from around the world came together to provide context at the start of the Youth-Led Solutions Summit. Following the statement, Daniel Gallen from the Latin America and Caribbean Alliance of YMCAs speaks to one of the indigenous young leaders, Saul Moran, a volunteer with the YMCA of Guatemala.
这块土地与我们紧密相连，千年来人类与大自然共存，我们生活在此，我们敬畏大地。
It is a living being who is always with us. What we take from it, we must give back. We are born of the earth, and someday we must give ourselves back to it.
Without our earth, humanity will be nothing. The earth is dying from deforestation, suffocating from pollution, and suffering from industrialization and overconsumption.
My people have been devastated and our ways of lives have been threatened.
나라에 넉잠랑 베프아니 미미시랑니 남기자라니 자트니 닥베왈랑니 gemani banggia. 발만두리 락카니 아르 아거사코 등탕등탕 어부스타랑치 니시아타코 만랭아.
Our earth is crying for help, and we need to save it.
The wisdom of our ancestors tells us that it is not enough to stop living or saving the trees or rescuing our beautiful animals.
因为所有生命休戚与共，我们必须保护的是一个完整的地球。
Modern society sees us as a people of a forgotten past, but we are the voice of the present and the guardian of our future.
안칭 아거사코 장기탕니 금을농자 인디바 짜담비 삭사옹니 플랍 짜담비랑 박사 박르메 구멍 낭르메 구초산옹니 안칭니 아거사코 만디자 통이 르ጵың아.
To protect humanity's future, we have to take action today.
There is only one world, and we are all its people.
别忘了，我们都是地球的一份子，我们彼此紧密相连，同甘共苦。
We are true custodian of the natural world.
We are the indigenous youth, and our voices matter.
Hello everyone, I am Daniel Galán from YMCA Latin American and Caribbean Alliance. Saul Moran was one of them, from San Cristobal, Verapaz, Alta Verapaz, a municipality in the north of the country of Guatemala. He identifies as Maya Pocomchi. His community is called Cajcoj, known by history as the children of the Red Puma. Their culture, Pocomchi, is one of the least known in Guatemala. Earlier this week, while reflecting on the indigenous leaders' call to action and the statement he helped to write, I caught up with Saul and started by asking about what his culture tells us about environment and nature.
Y podemos llamarle que la parte de la naturaleza en mi comunidad, en mi cultura, representa algo más allá del tener una creencia religiosa, del tener ideas del pensamiento cultural. No. El medio ambiente de acá refleja una conexión con nuestros abuelos y con los ancestros de ellos. Nosotros venimos de la naturaleza, como lo dice nuestra cultura, fuimos forjados a través del maíz y la conexión que tenemos a través de la naturaleza con el ser humano es más amplia. Se puede decir que sin naturaleza, aquí los Pocomchín no tenemos cultura. La naturaleza es equivalencia a decir cultura, respeto, religión y sabiduría. En este caso, la conexión que tenemos es sumamente muy especial por todo lo que nos ha brindado y cómo nuestros antepasados han convivido durante miles de años con ella, y hasta hoy en día todavía seguimos sobreviviendo en las mismas tierras en donde nuestros abuelos tejían, cultivaban y sobre todo donde, según nuestra cultura, fuimos creados. Entonces, la naturaleza representa para nosotros el cielo, el infierno y nuestra historia.
Muy interesante, Saúl. Muchas gracias también para conocer un poco más del contexto de la cultura y la comunidad que nos comentas. Y creo que aquí es importante también para nuestros amigos que nos acompañan, nos están escuchando, quizás conocer también o desde tu percepción personal, ¿por qué crees que es tan importante para nosotros escuchar y aprender de las comunidades indígenas?
Principalmente es por la experiencia que se vive. Uno podrá ser teórico, pero nunca se va a bastar con el conocimiento práctico que tienen las comunidades. Las comunidades han vivido, saben de alguna u otra manera autosostenerse y tener un equilibrio entre comunidad y medio ambiente. Entonces, lo que nos viene a demostrar acá la parte indígena de mi comunidad es que el equilibrio se puede lograr a través de ideas sustentables y autosustentables a un proceso largo, y a un proceso corto también de soluciones que para ellos pues pueda ser un poco más contextualizados. Como sabemos que las propuestas son estandarizadas en todos los países y si seguimos bajo esos estándares jamás vamos a llegar a un contexto suficiente y puntual para poder llegar nosotros a resolver alguna problemática que tengan las comunidades indígenas.
Perfecto, Saúl. Y también ya para ir cerrando, has comentado algunos puntos muy importantes como la parte de empoderar a los jóvenes, a las mujeres, dar más oportunidad y más visibilidad a las comunidades, a las personas más vulnerables. Y una pregunta que tenía y también está relacionada con las anteriores, sé que de alguna manera ya la has contestado, me gustaría que nos platicaras desde tu perspectiva, ¿qué necesitan cambiar la sociedad y las personas de manera individual para salvar nuestro planeta?
Primero, para mí, la empatía. ¿Por qué la empatía? Porque nosotros no podemos descartar de porque otras personas estén sufriendo y nosotros no, dejar de salvar lo nuestro. Respetar a través de la empatía los procesos de cultura. No solo porque en estos tiempos ya se haya olvidado la cultura y lo que representa el medio ambiente, se deje por un lado. Dejemos ya el egoísmo y pues vamos a algo empático con lo que pasa a nuestro alrededor. El empoderamiento no sirve acá si no hay empatía. La empatía humana es lo que realmente mueve a la sociedad, lo que hace que el voluntario tenga ese brillo en los ojos al momento de generar una acción. La empatía por las personas que realmente necesitan la ayuda sin siquiera pedirla. Esa es la esencia del voluntariado, el querer hacer las cosas inmediatas. 1 de cada 100 personas quizá podrán estar de acuerdo en que reciban talleres por montón, pero el cambio ya es en una, ya no en las 100. Entonces, mientras que el voluntariado o el voluntario en sí como persona no muestre el don de la empatía antes que el del liderazgo, no se va a llegar a nada bueno, no vamos a poder generar nada bueno. Y por supuesto, hay muchas propuestas en las cuales se pueden trabajar para el tema del cambio climático, para la prevención, tanto la energía eléctrica, pues reducirla a través de energías renovables, pero realmente las propuestas se quedan en propuestas cuando no se contextualiza. Yo puedo poner unas grandes hectáreas de energía eólica, solar, pero si yo no respeto la cultura y la tierra en donde yo me estoy metiendo, en donde yo puedo invadir a las personas, realmente no estoy llegando a hacer nada. mientras que nosotros tratemos de cuidar una casa que tenemos, también tratemos de cuidar a las personas que tenemos alrededor, porque sociedad, o mejor dicho, humanos y planetas es lo mismo. Sin tierra no somos nada, y como diría en mi cultura, de ahí salimos y allá vamos. Y esa sería mi perspectiva de qué sería objetivo para este caso, no con propuestas, sino con una sola idea que se tiene.
Let us now take a look at some of your comments and tweets. Let us know where in the world you're tuning in from in the comments section on YouTube or Hopin, or tweet using the hashtag YMCA Youth Solutions. Carrie in Scotland on Twitter says she's excited to be joining the Youth-led Solutions Summit on Climate today. A big hello to Serena Huang on Twitter, hosting a watch party in Taiwan. And hello to Ola Soygirl, Jean-Paul Osta, Sathya, and Preetham, who are posting with the hashtag YMCA Youth Solutions on Twitter. WWF International, the World Wildlife Fund for Nature, is the largest conservation organization in the world. WWF's work is essential, and the world's largest youth organization and the largest conservation organization partnering on this initiative is absolutely groundbreaking. Our next speaker leads a global network with nearly 60 years of environmental conservation successes, 5 million supporters, 35 million followers on social media, and activities in over 100 countries, running around 3,000 local projects per year, as well as global initiatives like Earth Hour, engaging millions and reaching billions of people annually. So, to tell us more about WWF, please welcome its Director General, Marco Lambertini. He is followed by Olivia Tawarar, who, having spent 8 months working with WWF Africa, organized a youth conference which gave birth to the Africa Youth for Nature Network, where she is now the head of communications.
Friends of YMCA, the planet has never been under greater pressure. Extinction, climate change, deforestation, forest fires, wildlife decline, overfishing, pollution, plastics. We must reset our relationship with the planet. We're not only failing on our moral duty to coexist with nature, we're also threatening our own climate, water, food, health, as the COVID-19 crisis has tragically shown us. Our civilization must embrace a deep cultural revolution. We must stop taking nature for granted, and we must value nature. Value nature for its intrinsic value, but also for the many goods and services it provides to us every day. Clean air, fresh water, food, but also inspiration, happiness. The good news is that we know what needs to be done, and we know we can do it. We must protect more of the natural places left on the planet, and we must green our consumption and production model, particularly the way we produce and consume energy and the way we produce and consume food. At the end of the day, is this generation, not the next one, that has the greatest challenge, but also the most exciting opportunity to drive this change, to build a future where people and nature live in harmony, a more prosperous, safer, more equitable future for all of us and for all life on Earth. And young people can be the environmental leaders of this change. Your passion, your energy, your voices, your forces, your actions can drive that change. And let me finish by asking you to be, on one hand, angry for what's happening in the world, but on the other, excited for the opportunity for change, and particularly to take action. There is nothing worse for our future or the future of the planet to think that someone else is going to fix all these issues. At the end of the day, it comes down to us, all of us, our individual choices, the way we consume our political choices. And so, from the woodlands in the Alps, where recently wolves have returned, I wish you a great continuation of your conversation, but particularly, let's join forces and drive change together.
Africa Youth for Nature Network is a network that was started by different youth leaders from across the continent. Youth leaders were brought together by WWF, and the main objective as to why WWF brought the youth together was to try and unify African voices, and also to help the youth create a declaration where they can be able to call different stakeholders to come in and support their cause. Towards the end, of course, by the end of the conference, we were able to come up with the declaration, and the declaration has been shared to different head of states until today. Just recently, our member from Gambia was able to share the declaration with the Ministry of Environment in their country, and they committed to support everything that was written in the declaration. That has been amazing because we've grown together for the last 2 years, and that was made possible by the help, of course, of WWF and YMCA. And the main objective of Africa Youth for Nature is, of course, to help and unify the African voices. And YMCA has specifically played a role to help us identify exactly how we can move forward, create a network which can be taken forward even after the conference that we had. At the moment, we are currently registering Africa Youth for Nature as an entity on its own. And our main purpose is to bring together those different organizations from across Africa and supporting all the activities that are done by different small organizations in different communities. So that is our main goal. But it's only possible because we have people and our partners who are willing to support us, and not coming and, of course, overtaking everything, but coming and just giving us a supportive idea, just giving us the support that we need as young people. And so far, as I've said, WWF and YMCA are really playing a major role on that. And what we've also been able to do as Africa Youth for Nature now is, of course, we've used the power of social media to push forward the agenda. We also had a campaign recently that we just wanted to bring different organizations to come and do tree planting, and that was a very successful event that we did with Africa Youth for Nature, of course, in collaboration with other organizations. And another thing that I'm also doing with WWF as we speak right now is the Global Youth Action Team. Global Youth Action Team was started by WWF this year, and it's almost the same as Africa Youth for Nature, but that one is now a global thing where they brought youth from different continents, and I got an opportunity to be part of the Global Youth Action Team representing the African region. So far, we have done amazing things with Global Youth Action Team, and recently, in collaboration with Global Youth Biodiversity Network, GIBIN, we were able to create a workshop, a conference called Stand Up for Nature, where we brought different young people from across the continent. And the main reason of that that workshop was, the way young people have amazing ideas, but they do not know how to reach to people, especially the main stakeholders, to push forward the agenda. Gibbon, together with GYAT, were able to come to say, let us bring the young people together and teach them about advocating for their cause. And that is what we were taught throughout the workshop. And it was a very, very successful workshop, because until today, different youth from across the globe are still putting everything they learned in the workshop into practice. And in fact, we are having a meeting with them, I think this coming Thursday, to just learn and just understand what they have been doing after the workshop. And it is going on very, very well. We've also done different campaigns with Global Youth Action Team, together in collaboration with other youth organizations, to just unify African voices and also unify voices of, the youth in the whole globe. Yeah. So that's what we've done with WWF so far. And one thing that excites me about WWF is understanding the role of youth in the society. And they know that the youth play a major role when it comes to conservation. And they do not only say that, because so many organizations just say about the importance of involving the youth, but they stop at saying it. But as WWF, together with the YMCA, they've worked very hard to bring the youth and giving them the platform to even move forward, supporting them in everything they do, in bringing them to these conferences and making the youth also be part of the decision makers. And that is one thing that I really appreciate with organizations, of course, like WWF and YMCA, who are really helping us as youth to push our agenda forward. And like even as an individual working with different people from across the continent, I always ask myself, because those young people are doing great things. You see one person doing something and you're like, you know what, I cannot be left behind as an individual. And what I have done for myself is I didn't want to just be there and just be part of the group, but I also wanted to stand out and people to notice me. And the fact that I've even been given an opportunity to be here, which I'm really thankful for, is because I know that I need to bring the change. I need to act as an example. And while I was an intern at WWF, that is where I started my individual course to try and bring the change. So what I did is WWF always organize this event. I'm sure all of you know about it, which is called Earth Hour. It's now a global thing. And I decided, because everyone is allowed to do an activity, I said, why not? So I'm very good at mobilizing people. So I called different people, my friends, and I told them, why don't we do an activity this Earth Hour? So we went and visited different schools. I went to the university that I was in, and I also did something with another high school here in Kenya, where we were able to plant over 200 trees. And what I always tell myself, it's not about planting trees, but also going back to the trees that you planted and trying to see if it's still there or it died immediately you planted it. But so far we've been able, I can confirm to you that all the trees that we planted, they are doing very well. And that is one thing that I go back and look and say, those are the small changes that we need to bring as young people. What I've also done is, after that was very successful, I decided as an individual to go to different schools and educate them about the importance of taking care of the environment, and of course about climate change. So I've visited, before COVID came, I had visited around 5 schools, both primary schools. Primary schools is for the young kids, and also the university schools, to try to educate them about the importance of taking care of the environment and urging them to join the cause, to keep on pushing. Because I understand it, I cannot do it alone. I need to bring as many people as I can. Of course, I can use Africa Youth for Nature, and I can also use my own individual, my bringing like people from different places to come and join me to keep on pushing this. And the good thing again is I'm a communicator. I did communication in school, so it's very easy for me to communicate and convince people to come and join the course. And so far so good. I think we've been able to bring different people to work together. And I know there are so many other young people who are doing amazing things. And, when we keep on doing that and understanding the role of youth in the society, then it means that it is not time to sit and just do nothing. It's time to come together and work together towards helping us having a better planet. And as you can see, it doesn't matter how old you are, where you come from, which community you come from, which language you speak, you can bring the change. And as you can see, the video that we'll be playing next, you can see how young people are magnifying they are bringing together and magnifying the voices and making sure that people understand that we are there and they need to join us and come to work together with us. Have a look at this video.
My message to the young people like me is keep hope alive and stand with nature.
What do I think about nature?
Without nature, our lives would be very difficult, and it is only to our advantage that we rebuild our world.
We are in a nature crisis.
Nature provides us with fresh air, clean water, fertile soil,
and even medicines.
Over 1 million species could disappear by the end of the century.
We can protect nature. We need to stop cutting down the forest.
Biodiversity and nature loss are the two biggest challenges we face.
We need a future, so let's have our future.
Unless governments and businesses learn to prioritize the environment, rates of extinction will continue to increase alongside the chances of another pandemic.
Nature needs us, and we need nature.
It's time for nature.
I'm sure you're also asking yourself, what can I do? Very easy. You do not have to really go and plant 1 million trees for you to make a difference. There's one person I always look up to, late Wangari Maathai, who says the little things you do makes a big difference. And that is what I've just told you, like the little things that we do. And as you can see, young people are doing something small to bring the change. So it doesn't mean that you have to go and plant 1 million trees for you to bring the change. You can use the smallest things that you have. You can create awareness. Use the power of social media, because like we know, like, so this era that we are right now is social media era. So you can decide to use your social media account to create awareness to different people. You can visit people from your community and educate them about the importance of taking care of the environment. You can decide to stop using a straw, because that is also one thing that can make a difference. And we need to understand as young people that this thing that we are always told that we are the future leaders, we are, I don't know what. For me, I do not subscribe to such things. I subscribe to I always tell myself that we are not the future leaders. We are the change makers of today. And that is why I always believe in this thing that was created by WWF, which is called the New Deal for Nature, where they bring people to work together and trying to figure out ways in which we can try to make our planet better. Have a look at this video.
Just before we take another look at some of your reactions, messages, and comments, we're about an hour into the launch, so wherever you are, if you're sitting down, jump up and shake yourself out, stretch, or just take a minute to check your feet. So, let's now take a look at some of your messages. Meryl's Honorine says, I'm from Cameroon, and despite the climate convention signed by industrialized countries, nothing has changed and things just get worse. Countries less industrialized like ours still suffer the most. Pablito Asuncion from LACA says, "So nice to listen to the realities of Latin America and what young people are doing to support indigenous communities." YMCA Europe's Secretary General Juan Simos says, "How great it was to hear indigenous youth voices elevated." At Global Tom V on Twitter says, "Thank you, World YMCA, for lifting up indigenous youth voices to advance progress against the climate crisis." Michael Hare from Bethlehem on Hopin says, "A few seconds ago, a big tree always starts with a small seed." Now, to the Marshall Islands and Koshai, the climate emergency poses severe threats to its security, human rights, and everyday way of life as the sea level rises. Just last year, its government declared a national climate crisis. Its president said the failure of the international community to adequately respond to the global climate crisis of its own making holds particularly grave consequences. By 2050, many of its islands may be uninhabitable if we don't act now. That is something our next speaker, Bertine Lacjon, is acutely aware of, having taken part in and led youth leadership camps and dialogues on the subject, which inspired her into taking environmental studies at college. Speaking with her now live is Ashley Kalaya, the former senior director of the YMCA Youth in Government program in Kentucky, USA, after which she joined the team at TED Talks to establish and increase the outreach of their Global Youth Voice program. During her tenure at TED, Ashley led the design and launch of the Youth Council for TED's Countdown Initiative, a massive worldwide effort to combat the climate crisis. Over to you, Ashley.
All right, I believe we are now live after a suspicious 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 count. Bertine, it's so good to see you. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing all right.
I know I am also doing very well. You and I have in common that it is early in the morning for both of us, right? It's 8 a.m. for me. I'm in California in the US. How about for you? Where are you right now, Bertine?
Right now, I am in Washington State, and it is also 8 a.m.
Okay, so we are west coast of the US, but that is not actually where you have spent the majority of your time. Can you share a little bit about your home in the Marshall Islands?
Yes, Yawayalib, that means hello everyone in Marshallese. My name is Bertine Rose Lacjon. I am from the Marshall Islands and Kashrai, which are both part of Micronesia, and they are both home to the vast blue ocean, coconut trees, a beautiful ocean biodiversity, and unfortunately is at the front line of the wrath of climate change. But I've only ever lived in the Marshall Islands, and the Marshall Islands is a coral atoll, which is sort of like a ring shape of islands that surrounds a lagoon.
Okay, a ring shape of islands that surrounds a lagoon. That sounds to me like a place I might go on vacation if I wanted to boat around and look at fish. Can you share a little bit about, so that for me, that would be special and different because it's unlike where I live. Can you share a little bit about what your what it means to live in a place that has this kind of biodiversity. Like what are some things that are part of your day-to-day life and the environment of the Marshall Islands that might not be familiar to those of us who don't live in an island nation or have not spent time in Micronesia?
So life in the Marshall Islands is quite, I would say, a little bit slow and everything. Like we are always moving at a very chill pace. And
island time?
Yeah, it's sort of like the very good time and everything. And usually a day-to-day thing for me is that you would go to school, and if it were really hot, because the ocean is at your expense, you would just go and take a dip in the ocean and swim. And if you were hungry, you would just like walk around, because it's not that big of an island, the one that I live on specifically. And you can just walk around to the stores, you can get local food. Local food would be like fish, coconut, breadfruit, and a lot of more sort of, I don't know them in English, but I do know them in Marshallese, but yeah.
That's okay. You can say them in Marshallese. I think it's interesting to know. Like what would your a common snack be, or something that you would get on your way home from school, or something for dinner?
So something that I would get on my way from home is probably like this chip. It's called meh chips. Meh in English is breadfruit, and it's sort of like this breadfruit that's like fried to become chip. And I would eat it with like a dried fish jerky, and that's probably like my favorite snack. It's a bit weird, but I really do like it.
I think that sounds delicious and amazing. I am curious about, you mentioned that where you live in the Marshall Islands is kind of on the front line of the climate crisis, the climate emergency. And I'm curious to know if in your day-to-day life in the Marshall Islands, if you have experienced anything that feels or looks different as a result of the climate crisis. Like what would it look like to someone who lives in the Marshall Islands?
So I've been traveling a lot for my high school education. And so when I was a freshman, when I was a sophomore of high school, I had to leave in order to pursue education in Japan. And when I came back, it definitely was a lot more different because, of course, since we are on the equator, sort of near the equator, it's hot. But when I came back, it was a lot hotter than I remembered. And it was not because of the weather differences for me, because I usually go back and forth during the summer break. But then the summer that I was there when I was a senior, it was a lot hotter than I remembered. And we had a lot more rainfall. And there was a lot more, there was like a disease outbreak due to this excessive rain that we had in the country. And this disease was sort of related to the fact that we had like a damp environment, which is home to like mosquito-borne diseases, I guess.
Right. So what you're saying is it's more than just a change of seasons, right?
Mm-hmm.
The temperature overall
Mm-hmm.
was noticeably different to you. The weather patterns are different, right? So more rain equals more opportunity. I mean, more rain than what your environment is used to is more opportunity for these mosquito-borne diseases and other illnesses. It's really interesting. So I'm curious. I know just from having chatted with you in the past that your time in Japan and then returning back to the Marshall Islands and discovering that your home was different in many ways led to your work to fight the climate crisis. Can you share a little bit about those first few steps? You know, what was the realization like, and what did you decide to do, and how did you do it?
So I am currently in the primary stages of my climate journey. I really just started my junior year of high school. So I'm really just trying to figure out in which direction would I really like to take my climate path. And so being home, I tend to ask myself questions like, am I concerned about the rising sea levels that I see that happen? The king tides? Am I concerned about the changing climate? Am I concerned about the diseases that arise due to the changing climate? And so I kind of ask these questions to myself, and then I look into areas where I think I could sort of develop more professionally in order to combat, in order to create solutions. And so I tend to ask, so I gravitate to asking myself, do I gravitate towards environmental policy that could sort of help me with those solutions, climate education, environmental management? And so in the past, I sort of invested myself in climate education and raising awareness as I took part in many educational climate camps in the Marshall Islands. And yeah, and so I learned a lot about the climate that I situated myself in and how it's impacted by climate change. And then with the information I obtained from all the camps, I sort of put myself in other camps that sort of helped me develop, like helped me sort of raise awareness about it. And so I spoke to people, conducted presentations, and got involved and tried my best to sort of make sure that we were being heard in any outlet or opportunities given to me.
So, okay, great. I would love for you to talk and we just have a couple more minutes left. You mentioned going to environmental camps, and I love that what you're saying about being able to think about, if you like, policy or doing work on the ground. What would you suggest for somebody who has said, yes, I do care about these issues that are happening in my environment, and maybe they don't have access to an environmental camp or they don't know where to look? What would you suggest as a first step for somebody who wants to be involved but isn't exactly sure where they might fit in their, or what their journey might look like?
So I think I would say anywhere you start is definitely a start that contributes to a greener future within this climate journey, no matter how small you personally think it is. Because, for example, if you think you just want to stop using plastic personally, then I think you should do that, because you then grow with that initiative and then you learn things about it, and then you can extend that to others. And in a way, you can sort of then advise them on why they should also stop using plastic and why they should turn to alternative sort of uses instead of plastic for a greener future.
I love that. I love that. No matter what you decide you want to do, taking any step is you beginning your climate journey. And it might not feel like you're making a large impact at the beginning or at any step along the way, but like you're saying, even those small things add up to your own commitment and making this big difference. Any final thoughts for this group of young people from around the world who are going into this solutions summit design set of activities? Any final thoughts for them, Bertine?
I just would like to expand a little bit more and say that I see that any contribution, climate action from young individuals are so important, and they are such important actions because we are together striving towards to rebuild, reboot, and fix the damage that our older generations have left us to deal with. So thank you so much for all that you do. And I really hope that we can all achieve that greener future we aspire to reach.
Thank you so much, Bertine. Thank you for the work that you have done and that you are doing. And thank you for letting us all know that being in the beginning of your climate journey is a great place to be, especially when you have all of the young people in this community to learn from and to work with. So appreciate it. Thank you so much. And we will talk to you soon.
Thanks so much for having me.
All right. Thanks, Bertine. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, Bertine and Ashley. You can find out more about all our speakers with links to their social media channels and websites at ymcayouthsolutions.org. And I see that you've been posting on Twitter using the hashtag YMCAYouthSolutions, taking part in this amazing dialogue. So, Mary Tikalski from the USA says, use the power of social media to educate, create empathy, create positive change in nature. Tina Weaver, also from the USA, says, let's push the agenda forward. No time to sit back. let's go. Derek says, it's time we created change. Whatever we do to the environment will definitely pay back with ripple effects. Daniel Giles is passionate about addressing the climate crisis, promoting regenerative business, protecting the environment, and creating opportunities for others. Daniel previously served as senior counsel at Kraft Foods and Eat Just, providing business and legal counseling for each company's sustainability, supply chain, research and development, and corporate affairs teams. In our workshop section on Hopin, he's presented The Optimist's Guide to the Climate Crisis, How to Do More Than Hope, for solution teams working during the summit as they prepare to put forward their solutions. As an exclusive live look at Daniel's approach, he conveys what you need to know, what can actually make a difference, and what you can do about it.
All right, I hope everyone can hear me. I was on mute for a second, but now I think we should be good to go. Welcome. I hope everyone is enjoying the programming that's been set aside, and I appreciate your willingness to not only spend time, but to spend, mental and emotional energy coming to grips with something that is very serious for our planet. And I have been passionate about trying to do something about the climate crisis for over a decade. And in a moment, we will bring up a presentation that I've prepared for you to give you an experience to level set where we are in the climate crisis, give us a hint on, what might work. And then maybe an opportunity to see various paths to optimism as we try to figure out how we're going to solve this problem. All right, so we have the slide up. So again, this is the intro to the Optimist's Guide to the Climate Crisis, How to Do More Than Hope. And again, my goal is to help us do more than just wait and hope that something else is going to happen in order to get us out of the situation that we have placed ourselves in. I'm from New York City in the United States. As you've heard, I'm an attorney, but I'm also a sustainability advisor, and I do a fair amount of volunteering. But I think the important thing for you to know about me is that I have been looking at this for over 10 years, trying to figure out, just like you are figuring out in your journey, what is actually happening with the climate crisis. Next slide. So let's start with some basics. Atmospheric CO2 is higher than at any time in the last 3 million years. So while we know that there's a carbon cycle and it's natural, this amount of carbon in the atmosphere is higher than at any time over the last few million years. And if you look at the graph, that departure in 1950, right, that's the anomaly. And you might wonder, hey, well, what's going on since 1950? Well, human beings are responsible for virtually all of the observed global warming since 1950, right? That's most of us on the planet. I'm sorry, many of us, not most. Next slide, please. And so we've heard about the harrowing projections. I've heard them for a while. I wasn't always clear about, okay, well, what's actually going to happen at what temperature? Where are we going? If you can see this picture on the left of the screen, that's from 1981. And I believe scientists around the world first began, discussing with serious gravity the role of global warming in around 1965 or 68. At least that was at minimum the U.S. So we've known about this for a long time, decades. Next slide, please. So these harrowing projections that we have heard about, if you look at a 2012 World Bank report, there's a very serious statement in that report. And that statement is that there's almost no certainty that adaptation to a 4 degree Celsius world is possible, and that 4 degrees Celsius of warming simply must not be allowed to occur. Now, the word to focus on is adaptation, right? That statement says we don't know if we can adapt to a 4 degrees Celsius world. If you cannot adapt, then that means that we're running the risk of extinction of human civilization in the form that we at least know it. That's a significant loss of life, let alone happiness and what have you. There was a later statement on that slide in January of 2020 from JP Morgan Chase that said it's not out of the realm of possibility that we cannot rule out the catastrophic outcomes where life as we know it is known, right? And this is a bank, not a left-leaning or liberal, institution, also agreeing that this is a very serious situation. Next slide, please. And so as I began to embrace the information that, was just flooding down from these official reports, I wondered, well, what is going to happen at 4 degrees Celsius, that temperature that the World Bank says that we should not cross that threshold? Well, here are some examples of what our best estimates are of what we think will happen at 4 degrees Celsius of warming, right? We get Europe in a permanent drought, Polynesia swallowed by the sea, Colorado River in the US is thinned to a trickle, vast areas of China, India, Bangladesh become a desert. And then we're committed to even more warming after that. And this will be a series of irreversible change. We cannot go back to the way life was if we reach that 4 degrees Celsius mark. And again, the warning is that by our best estimations that we think there's a large possibility that human civilization cannot adapt to 4 degrees Celsius of warming. Next slide, please. So there are a series of disturbing trends that I've also noticed over the last few years. 2015 to 2019 are the warmest years on record. 19 of the 20th warmest years on record have occurred since 2001. Greenhouse gas emissions hit another record high in 2019. Greenland land ice is melting 6 times faster than the 1980s, and uninhabited Pacific islands have already submerged. The irony of the COVID-19 pandemic is that 2020 might be one of the coolest years on record for some time to come. And it's come at great cost. Next slide, please. So as I began to say, okay, I see what's going to happen at 4 degrees Celsius. I then wondered, well, what's going to happen at the temperatures below 4 degrees Celsius of warming? And so here are some additional examples about what's going to happen. This is at 1.5 degrees Celsius of warming, a 70% decline in tropical reefs, 1 foot of sea level rise to low-lying areas, moderate glacial melting. This is, land ice, irreversible biodiversity loss, hot days and marine heat waves increased by 16%. And there's a 6% to 20% decrease in global production of wheat and maize, right? Products that we eat in nearly every country across the globe. And then there's the economic damage. This is about 54 trillion in US dollars of global economic damage, which is about 46 billion in euros. This is significant. And I want you to keep an eye on this these red arrows going in a circular pattern in the middle. I will get to that in a few slides. Next slide, please. At 2 degrees Celsius of warming, right, that's the threshold set by the Paris Agreement. We think tropical reefs effectively go extinct. There's 2.5 feet of sea level rise that threatens additional 10 million people. Hot days and marine heat waves increase by 25%. There's significant irreversible biodiversity loss. There's a complete exodus from the Persian Gulf. And then we're committed to warming somewhere between 2 degrees Celsius and 3.8 degrees Celsius and $69 trillion of US dollars of economic damages. This is the threshold that we thought via the Paris Agreement that we could at least adapt to despite the tremendous damage that will occur at 2 degrees Celsius. Next slide, please. At 3 degrees of warming, we've got 21 to 52% of plant and animal species committed to extinction due to climate changes. Forests will grow in the Arctic, where there haven't been forests for as long as we know. Average drought lasts 10 months. Permafrost melt emits gigatons of greenhouse gases. And then there's 6 feet of sea level rise that could affect coastal cities, displacing somewhere between 187 million people or to 200 million people around the globe, right? And if you think of, coastal cities around the world, there's Miami, Bangkok, Bombay, Central London, Shanghai, and New York City, mostly the island of Manhattan. This is very, very serious. And I don't know why we haven't communicated the risks in these terms at these temperatures broadly. Next slide, please. And so there's one more thing that I'd like to explain. That circle, right, with the arrows, that symbolizes that there is a potential for what is called runaway climate change, where a natural event will occur that will release so much greenhouse gases that we cannot stop climate change. And we don't know exactly where that trigger point is. We believe it's somewhere between 2 degrees Celsius of warming and 4 degrees Celsius of warming, but we really don't know. And if you think about it, while we'd like to avoid 4 degrees Celsius of warming, what we really need to avoid is that trigger point. And we don't know if that trigger point is the Siberian forest, the Siberian permafrost melting. We don't know if that's, the Antarctic ice sheet melting. But we believe it is something in the middle could go wrong. And then we will be at the mercy of climate change as opposed to having our ability to stop it. Now, here's in that very serious picture, here's the good news. We're at 1 degree Celsius of warming right now. We've already seen hurricanes of massive strength in the Caribbean. Wildfires wreck the state of California in the US, where I live. We've got, again, gigatons of greenhouse gases emerging. We are already living in an era of climate change. But we have the possibility of doing something to be able to stop us from this trajectory to 4.1 degrees Celsius. So while this is something that I think everyone should know, we shouldn't scare ourselves into thinking, well, there's nothing that we can do. That's actually not true. Next slide, please. So, what are we going to do? Next slide, please. For this exercise, I want us to make a word cloud, and I want you to tell me which climate actions do you think will have the greatest impact on solving the climate crisis. I will then take those 3 actions and I will demonstrate them in a simulation model that's based on the best climate data available today. It was created by a project at MIT that's now spun out and is called En-ROADS. And the organization is called Climate Interactive. So I want you to follow the instructions on the screen, right? You're going to go to polev.com. You're going to enter Y for all. And I want you to enter your response. Again, what one action or change have you heard will have the biggest impact on climate change? Will it be, let's say renewable energy, population, nuclear technology, stopping fossil fuels, carbon price, reducing agricultural emissions, you name it, you tell us, and we'll soon see this word cloud popping up on screen. All right, so go to polev.com right now, enter Y for all, and then enter what you think is the one action or change that you've heard that will have the biggest impact on the climate crisis. All right, keep the answers coming in. Reduce emissions. All right, we've got people saying regulation, corporate, entrepreneurship. Someone said veganism, industry travel, fuel, I see. Carbon alternatives. Plastics. Flying. So many words, keep them coming in. But I'm only going to take the top 3 because that's all we have time for. All right. All right. I think we are ready to now try to map out some of this. So first, let's identify what we think are the 3 top levels. See, we have reduce emissions, carbon, green, veganism is now popping up, plastics. All right, I'm going to share my screen. All right, I hope everyone can see the screen. All right, we're going to start exemplifying some of the things that we saw in the word cloud. Now, let me explain what you're looking at here. Again, this is a simulator made by Climate Interactive. This is called the En-ROADS simulator. It's open source, available to the public. You'll be able to use it yourselves. This line represents what I was talking about 4.1 degrees Celsius. Right? This is the trajectory we're currently on today. If we do nothing, if it's business as usual, we make no changes, this is how we think we will arrive to 4.1 degrees Celsius, and we think we will get to that 4-degree threshold by the year 2100. So let me, begin to demonstrate some of the answers that you conveyed. So I recall that the number one answer was reduce CO2 emissions. And we tend to think that our CO2 emissions are derived from fossil fuels. Well, let me show you what would happen based on the best climate data available, what we think would happen if we reduce coal. So if we very highly tax coal to the most possible, we think the effect will only change our trajectory from 4.1 degrees Celsius by 2100 to 3.8 degrees Celsius by 2100. Right? I'll show it to you again. We think that if, oh, I'm sorry, I missed one thing that's very important about this simulator. This simulator shows you what happens if the entire globe does this action. So if the entire globe, every country that is using coal, taxes it at the highest amount possible in the country, within the bounds of reality, we think that the best temperature change will be 0.3 degrees Celsius. Right? That doesn't get us to our safe levels, that levels that we think we can adapt to, 2 degrees Celsius and preferably 1.5 degrees Celsius of warmth. Someone suggested, I saw travel on the screen several times. That will be considered the electrification of transport. So here, not only are we going to electrify, let's say, driving, but also industrial trucks, pickup trucks, trains. We're going to electrify as best as we possibly can. And we're going to do that by incentivizing the purchase and use of electric vehicles. We think that change will only get us to 4.0 degrees Celsius by the year 2100. Again, I'll show it to you one more time. If we electrify all potential vehicles, we think that the change will get us to 4 degrees Celsius by 2100. And again, based on what I've already shown you about what we think will happen at 4 degrees Celsius, we haven't had the change that we thought. I'll do one more. I'll do renewables, right? Because the lead answer was reduce carbon emissions, right? And our assumption is that, hey, well, renewables are clean and carbon free. So what if the world highly subsidizes renewable energy? We think, based on the best climate data available today, that while our use of fossil fuels will decrease, the relative impact to our temperature change trajectory will be 4.1 degrees to 3.9, a 0.2 degrees Celsius change. I want that to sink in for a moment. We are highly subsidizing around the globe renewable energy, and this is the change. We have pursued electrification of all possible transport around the globe, and this was the change. We have highly taxed coal around the globe. And this was the change. So I'd like to return to the slides now. So did we solve the climate crisis by those actions that you saw? The answer would be no. And I think that's important because I don't want you, our change makers, as you've heard today, our change makers of today for the future that we need. I don't want you to think that there is only one thing that must happen, and if we do that, we'll be okay. That's not necessarily the case. Other things need to take place, and that simulation model does lay out what would be successful scenarios. So I don't want you to leave without hope. There is hope, but what I wanted to do was paint a better picture about where we are and the things that we likely have to do in order to be successful in the climate crisis. And this is what I'll discuss in the workshop, the pre-recorded workshop later in the week. Next slide, please. So you might be wondering, well, how can that be? Where is the optimism if we're trending towards 4 degrees Celsius by 2100, only 80 years from now, and that there's a trigger point between, 2 degrees warming and 4 degrees warming, and we don't know where that is? Well, I think there are ways to look at it. So here's Active Hope. Active Hope is by the legendary deep ecologist Joanna Macy, and she says that there's no room for merely hoping that a perfect solution will emerge without trade-offs and that we'll escape any consequences of global warming. She says that we need active hope, which is taking action that puts us in the best position to be successful, right? So doing nothing is not an option. We must act, and we must act now, and we must get as much engagement as possible. The second pathway to optimism is vision and current reality, right? We have this vision about where we'd like to go, but we're also in this current reality. And you can't live in either one, right? If you live in the current reality, you are believing that we will just get to 4.1 degrees Celsius and that's it, it's over, it's no reason to do anything. And you can't live in the vision because we can't go 100% renewable, let's say, in 24 hours, right? We have to hold that tension. We have to have this aspiration in its direction, and we have to recognize, the realities of what we're facing, but also, not be bound by them. And finally, I think the third pathway for optimism is life. For every 0.1 degrees Celsius that we avoid, we save many, many lives, tens of thousands to millions, to tens of millions, to hundreds of millions, depending on where we are in our trajectory, right? Every time we reduce our trajectory by 0.1 degree, we save lives. And I think saving lives is worth it and why we should act. Even if we don't end up at 1.5 degrees Celsius, we know it's better than 2, and we know it's better than 2.5, and we know 3 is better than 3.5 and better than 4. So we must act, we must pull down as much of our trajectory as possible, and I think it's worth it. Finally, there's this idea of co-benefits where we can solve multiple problems at once. By not flying due to COVID, not only did we stop the spread of COVID-19, but we also reduced air pollution. And air pollution happens to be connected to climate change as well. But we solved multiple problems at the same time. Like, we got a peek at what it is. And so when you're looking for climate solutions, try to look for climate solutions that also solve other problems. With that, I hope to see you in the pre-recorded workshop. And thank you for your time. And remember, you need to be informed about what's really going on, but also be optimistic to get where we need to go. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. That was so informative and reaffirms the urgency for climate action and climate justice. Now, our keynote speaker, a young scientist and social entrepreneur, developed Aqualuz, the technology to treat rainwater from harvesting systems using sunlight. And it's saving lives every single day. She is the youngest Brazilian to graduate from the Leadership for New Enterprises from MIT. She won the UN Young Champions of the Earth Award and is listed as one of the 20 inspiring young people in her 20s in Brazil by McKinsey & Company. Please welcome Ana Luisa Becerra, founder and CEO of Safe Drinking Water for All.
Hello guys, it's a pleasure to be here with you to talk about my story with water. Probably all of you who have seen me now have a source of water that you consider safe to drink. But what if it wasn't? What if it was a water similar to this? And what the data shows us is that statistically a quarter of you today would consume contaminated water. Your children would be sick and dying from that water. Maybe this reality does not seem close or real because of this data do not reflect on the population represented in this talk, but an unassisted one and without access to basic human right, the water. The size of the problem may be too big to be solved, but it's not. That's why we have the responsibility to promote this change. We have the voice. We have the ways to obtain the financial resources and the technical knowledge necessary to this. Knowing about this problem when I was 15 years old here in Brazil and had the dream of being a scientist, I started to study the water problem more to create a solution in Brazil and in many other countries in the world. There is an ancient technology being applied to capture rainwater and store it for families in basically rural areas to use as their main source of water. The problem is that there was no technology that specifically treated water from that source. The consequence is that 360,000 kids die per year because of water-related disease. Yes, every year 85,700 children under 15 die from diarrhea linked to unsafe water, sanitation, and hygiene facilities. This affects not only the health, but also in the education of children and the economy of adults, because they miss school and work when they are sick. Therefore, we create a solution based on the principle of solar water disinfection. It is also the only technology for cisterns, the rainwater harvesting systems, in the world, and always just in 3 simple steps. 1. The user pumps the water, which passes through a filter to retain the solid particles. 2. The water is exposed to the sun until the sensor inside of the equipment changes color, indicating that the water is clean and the microorganisms have been eliminated. 3. Then the user can withdraw the water for consumption of the equipment directly. And with this, we directly impact the quality of life of families in rural areas, such those in Brazil, and guaranteeing the most importance, the independence of access to drinking water, since the equipment has 20 years of durability and its maintaining is only cleaning with water and soap. The best availability of all market. The solutions available right now in the Brazilian market for rural areas are limited to clay filter, the favorite, chlorination, the most hated but the cheapest, and boiling, the most expensive. And as you can see in this table, in all points of price, durability, damage to health, and simple maintenance, Aqualuz is the best. This with feedback from the users themselves. But our work does not end there. Safe Drinking Water for All, SDW, a company I found to take Aqualuz from the laboratory to the market, became much more involved in the lives of these families. We have come to understand others' needs more clearly, such as access to bathroom and greywater treatment systems, in addition to the treatment of brackish water, which cannot be treated with Aqualuz. Therefore, this year we started to develop solutions to solve these problems as pandemic started and we couldn't leave our skill out of it. That's why we also created Aquapluf, which is a wash basin for use in public spaces, guaranteeing the habit of hand hygiene on the street, with the differentials of being resistant to vandalism, using rainwater as an alternative source, being operated by pedal and in soap and water, and being user-friendly for its design and ergonomics. And our work is not only done by delivering the technology to the families. Our work is a complete project where a company finances the technology and everything. We map families as well as their economic data. Then we train, we implement and monitor them, where we also collect socioeconomic data comparatively, and the result of everything in an impact report for the financier, with return data on social investment, as well as all benefits for the families. With Aqualuz work in rural areas, we were able to reach that year the impact of 2,000 people benefited with a return on social investment of each dollar invested in Aqualuz results in $14 in return for societies, for health, education, economic, and mainly quality of life. Now our goal is to climb even more. In 4 years, in 2024, we already want to be impacting more than 1 million people on different continents, validating our technologies and guaranteeing independent access to drinking water and sanitation for these families who need it so much. With all this impact, we have won many national and international recognitions and awards, including one from the UN and other from MIT, guaranteeing an even greater credibility to our work. And all this mainly due to the fantastic team behind these results, a team that is diverse in all aspects and has a common purpose for social impact. Apart from the mentors and partners who, despite not being represented on the slides, are also part of our story. I will now end this conversation and invite you all. Let's kill thirst in the world. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Anna. Find out more about safe drinking water for all and Anna in her bio at ymcayouthsolutions.org. Now is one of your last chances today for us to read out some more of your comments and tweets as we come to a close. Don't forget to tell us where you're joining us from And don't go anywhere. There are still so many more exciting moments just around the corner. So, Kofifi Sylvain Amewu from Togo says, as change agents, we need to impact people in our communities by doing small activities and also by using the power of social media. Our final speaker has been deeply involved with the Youth-Led Solutions Initiative since its inception, since more than a year prior when the world looked very different. Charles Collins, President Emeritus of the YMCA of San Francisco, alongside a global planning committee of young leaders from every continent, as well as many other leaders, have been working behind the scenes to make the summit possible, sourcing partners, drafting the agenda, and much more. A pioneer of making sure that young leaders always have a seat at the table, we look to a future with funding, as today we announce the first round of seed funding for the Youth-Led Solutions Initiative's currently participating solutions teams.
Good day. I'm Chuck Collins, and I'm the President Emeritus of the YMCA of San Francisco. I'm a fierce advocate of young people leading global change and youth leading just and sustainable solutions to our most pressing problems. In your words, everyone is a neighbor. Education leads to action. We must be a proactive generation to advance society. We have only 7 years until we have irreversible climate change. We have established relationships with our lands and our environments, and we know and we feel and understand the suffering and the problems in our worlds. We must be connected to the earth, our planet, and to our worlds, and we are all interconnected. There may be no tomorrow if we don't make change now. Even small changes matter. Carl Sagan wrote, "The earth and everyone you love, everyone you ever heard of, every human being that ever was, lived out their lives in this small place, this small mote that is suspended in a sunbeam. It is the lonely speck in the evolving darkness of the cosmic world. This is our home in the universe. This is our beautiful blue planet. This is the planet where we all live in our different but connected worlds. This is our planet where we share the same air, the same skies, and the same water." In your words, we must have the resources to fuel your ideas and to leverage your solutions and creativity and to amplify your voices and to make real change. Money is one of those resources. And today we open our seed grants to give power to your ideas and solutions. Seed grants are money to help initiate and sustain your creativity so that we can have and you can have real changes. Today we announce for the first time in global YMCA history that we are committing an incredible $150,000 to seed grants to young leaders to be allocated to ideas in this competition round of funding. And the applications open today. These seed grants will be in 3 tiers. There will be seed, leaf, and tree. Smaller amounts at the seed level are to germinate new ideas. Leaf grants are to go to existing solutions with a proven track record, looking to grow and to evolve. Tree grants will be innovative, involve youth leadership, and have the ability and the potential to be replicated and scaled. At each one of our future summits, we will provide further seed funding. Throughout history, young people like you have imagined what could be and have made changes that have advanced society, the arts, science, technology, politics, religion, and human development. Young people and their creative energy can and will make a difference in our ability to live sustainably on this beautiful blue planet suspended in the vastness of the universe, where all lives flourish and thrive and all species matter in the wondrousness of this world. These seed grants are your fuel, and we will continue these Youth Solution Summits with seed grants and these initiatives so that your ideas will receive further funding so that you can work together to implement ideas and to bring climate actions in concert with the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations. We are all in this together, and to make changes now that will ensure an abundant future for all. In your words, the future is now. The deadline is here. All solutions must be equitable solutions. In your words, the YMCA has a responsibility to multiply change. Good luck as you initiate your ideas and bring them to life for the health and well-being of all. You are the agents of change, and we thank you. Good luck.
$150,000 being released directly into the hands of young leaders around the world. That is incredible. So now a couple of final messages from you. Sang Moon from Myanmar says, we need to change the mindset of human beings to be responsible and sustainable. Absolutely. Stacey Mumbanga says, we are here to change. By working together, we can save our nature and we must take action now. Angelina says, the climate is changing. Why aren't we? Honestly, Angelina, I ask myself that question every single day. Finally, if you're watching on Hopin right after the summit closes today, head over to the Sessions tab where A.D. Davies, World YMCA Program Executive, will be hosting a post-summit roundtable discussion for your thoughts, takeaways, words of inspiration, and reflections. We shall see you back here on Friday at the same time, 4 p.m. Central European Summer Time, where 30 minutes prior, we will be hosting another pre-summit insight session. Over the next 3 days, solution teams will be using Hopin to watch workshops from our partners. There will also be closed virtual roundtable sessions taking place to meet other teams from around the world. Keep posting on social media throughout the week using the hashtag YMCA Youth Solutions. I'm Kehkasha Basu signing off. Thank you, see you soon, and have a wonderful week ahead.
Oh,